But first, right now, we begin with this late breaking news just into the WHAS11 newsroom. In the Breonna Taylor case, major developments. Two former Metro police officers who were charged in the Breonna Taylor case had some of their most serious charges dismissed late today. In the new ruling late this afternoon, federal judge Charles Simpson of Louisville dismissing two felony charges against Joshua James and Kyle Meany. Those two are accused of falsifying that search warrant that led to the deadly raid on Breonna Taylor's house, which was March 13th, 2020. A judge today ruled that the falsified warrant was not, again, the warrant was not the cause of Breonna Taylor's death, a charge that had carried a sentence of life in prison. Meany's attorney, Brian Butler, tells WHAS 11 News just moments ago that they're very pleased by the court's ruling. Meany and James are still facing some charges in connection to the case. This is a late developing story. Our team is going through the lengthy ruling and our reporters are getting reaction. And by the way, you did see Metro Police Chief Paul Humphrey on the air with us at 4 o'clock. He was in our building. I did talk to the Metro Police public information officers about this ruling, told them about it to see if we could get comment for you, and they said that they do want to go through it with their legal team before commenting. They did have to weigh it because it had just come down as they were in the newsroom. So a developing story sure to come here later through the evening. Well, today work is officially underway for Kentucky's new Expo Center. It's one of our other top stories. Hi, everybody. I'm Doug Proffitt. And
I'm Connie Leonard in for Shay tonight. Well, state and local officials broke ground this afternoon on a multi-million-dollar project to renovate the center. And WHAS 11's Ian Hardwick joins us live now from the Expo Center.
Ian, you've been looking over the architect's plans, and we're talking about a project that's worth more than $100 million. So show us where the money's going.
Yeah, Doug, the money's going to go mostly to the West Wing, which is going to get two new buildings. Take a look at the face of the building right now. You can see it's a little rectangular, but what it's going to be is it's going to be a steeple, a triangle shape full of glass. If you want to see what the architect thinks it's going to look like, just take a look now. This is the future look of the Kentucky State Fair, along with the hundreds of other events the fairgrounds host year-round.
I know some people can see it like, oh, it's just here in Louisville and that's only for those folks, but I think this fair does a pretty good job of representing all the counties, and I think it's really nice to have sort of a home base for that. So.
Carlisle County native and current Louisville resident Katie Kramer hopes the improvements will give people a better taste of her home state. It's how the fair's board wants to elevate the melting pot of Kentucky and make it a place people want to revisit.
And all the General Assembly, the legislatures, we finally got here, guys. It's a long time coming.
The renovation is made possible through $393 million from the state of Kentucky, which Senate President Robert Stivers says was an obvious decision despite the price tag because of the customers it brings in.
They're going to restaurants, they're going to the local malls and retail shops, buying clothes, buying gifts. So it has just a huge economic multiplier that every dollar this brings in probably gets out in the county 2 to 3 times more.
These possibilities, brought on by newfound cooperation between local and state government, are what Deputy Mayor David James calls historic.
Between the state legislature and metro government that occurred in this past legislative session in order to help make all of these things happen.
So this is not for Louisville, it's in Louisville, impacts Louisville, but this is the state's primary place to have an event.
A place that will change a lot over the next few years with 2 new buildings starting in 2025, but the construction officials say won't get in the way of all the events hosted here, including the next state fair. Now, if you're like me and you get lost driving around that big circle around the fairgrounds, you're in luck. There's good news. The construction will introduce new electronic signs that'll help point the way to where you're going. For now, I'm live at the Kentucky State Fair. Ian Hardwick, WHAS 11, on your side.
Right, Ian, thank you so much. Well, a Kentucky State representative in Louisville has a chance to keep her seat after initially being disqualified.
Nima Kulkarni represents House District number 40, which covers a lot of South Louisville. Kulkarni's opponent filed a lawsuit claiming her campaign paperwork was improperly filed. But Kulkarni won the primary back in May. So after a lower court ruling, the Kentucky Supreme Court disqualified her from re-election back in June. From there, the rules got murky in this case. It was unknown who would be the nominee. Today, the Supreme Court cleared it all up here in Kentucky, effectively moving the issue over to the Secretary of State's office. That, of course, is Michael Adams.
And today, Michael Adams responded to this ruling on X, saying in part that he plans to let both political parties nominate a candidate for an ultimate vote in November. Kulkarni said in a statement today to us that weeks ago voters chose me by almost 80%. Therefore, I will respect the voters' wishes and seek the nomination again. I look forward to getting back to work for the 40th District.
And a special prosecutor has been appointed to investigate the citation issued against New Albany's Mayor Jeff Gahan, the longtime mayor there. This follows the mayor's emergency authorization to improve safety at the Silver Creek Dam. According to the Indiana Department of Natural Resources, the Floyd County, Indiana prosecutor has decided that Otto Schock from Harrison County will be handling the case. It comes after the Indiana DNR and the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers said Gahan didn't have the necessary permits to authorize the construction of the dam. Now, the mayor authorized the work after teenager Andre Edwards died at the dam back on Memorial Day weekend. He drowned there. There's no timeline for when the construction will resume. And now to Nelson County, the other big story here at 5. These are the two men now on the Crystal Rogers case representing Steve Lawson. The attorneys are not from Bardstown and tell us they were just handed this large case 48 hours ago. Well, Steve Lawson, as you know, is charged with a conspiracy to commit murder and tampering with physical evidence.
Just 2 weeks ago, he fired his attorney, accusing him of working with Brooks Houck's attorneys behind his back. Shay McAllister and photojournalist Jessica Farley report from Bardstown.
Stephen Lawson has two new faces representing him in this court case. One is from Lexington, the other is from Louisville. Both are private attorneys hired by the public defender's office to give him the best representation possible. And today, they're telling us 48 hours on this job, they already think they won't be ready for a February trial. Stephen Lawson led the way into the courtroom with his two brand new attorneys behind him, eagerly waiting to find out what this means for the case. Sherry Ballard and her family sat just feet away, and they didn't have to wait long. His new attorney, Darren Wolf, based in Louisville, made it clear the timing could change.
I am not 100% positive that we are going to be prepared to try the case at the time period that this court currently has scheduled for that.
He's referring to the February trial date, now just 6 months away.
I think this probably shouldn't surprise anybody. We literally just got appointed to this thing. So we've been given 2 terabytes of information, which clearly is more than most cases. And the investigation in this case is strung on for an extensive period of time.
Off camera, members of the Ballard family tell us it's disappointing. They've waited years for justice already, and they aren't the only ones hoping the delay won't be long. The judge says with 3 people sitting in jail, a timely trial date is critical. The next court date has been set for October the 4th. It is on that day we could be finding out if we will have 3 separate trials or one trial with all 3 defendants together. In Nelson County, I'm Shay McAllister, WHAS 11 on your side.
And we still don't know where this trial will ultimately be held. The attorneys and prosecutors previously suggested Christian County on the Tennessee border. It's 150 miles away from Bardstown, but the judge has not agreed to that just yet.
And our Shay McAllister has been following this case since Crystal Rogers first disappeared. For a timeline of the case, you can head to our website, WHAS11.com. Well, Connie, I can tell you the bugs and the crickets, they were loud last night.
Were
the
they?
windows were open. It's that kind of weather in August. You could throw them open and save on the LG&E bill. Sorry, LG&E,
Yeah,
not going to get so much money this time around.
I think he's right, Ben. I was going to say this morning I got into the car and I thought it was a little cold. It was actually odd.
Yeah, I had the windows wide open last night, and about 5 a.m. had to shut it down. had to let the cool air stay outside for a little bit. Yeah, we had some chilly spots actually. This is more like late September, early October October. 44, the low temperature in Brandenburg, 57 in Louisville, and also down to the 40s in Litchfield. So those were the low temperatures right around sunrise this morning. We did make it up a little bit warmer into the lower 80s. Our official high at 83. Not a cloud in the sky. Beautiful blue sky. Humidity very low at 30%. That was down to 27% last hour. Some of the lowest humidity we've seen so far this summer. And so lower 80s over the metro, across the area, upper 70s and lower 80s. And since the air is very dry, temperatures are going to cool off very nicely once that sun does set. So much of the evening in the 70s, and then around sunset or just after that, we'll fall into the 60s. High pressure anchored to our northeast, giving us a light east breeze and keeping it all clear across the area. So incredibly quiet conditions again for tonight, with lows back down to the 50s. A nice cool and crisp start to our Friday. Tomorrow afternoon, getting back to normal though as we head into the upper 80s. So very nice out there at the ballpark. 6:35 first pitch with temperatures in the 70s for the Bats game. Cool and clear tonight with upper 50s, right around 80 at lunchtime tomorrow. And for your Friday afternoon, up to 88 degrees. We have a lot of 90s after that to show you coming up in our full weather impact team forecast.
It's the fourth quarter. We're down a field goal, but we're on offense and we've got the ball. We're driving down the field.
A rousing speech before the Democrats last night in Chicago as Minnesota Governor Tim Walz accepting the party's vice presidential nomination. Walz relying on his experience as a teacher and a football coach, rallying the party to unite behind Vice President Kamala Harris. It's your voice, your vote, and it's going to be Harris's stage at the DNC tonight. She's set to address the country in prime time in Chicago, formally accepting the party's nomination.
And you've seen WHAS11 cover the convention all week, having our crew out in Chicago when it first kicked off, covering Kentucky Governor Andy Beshear and, of course, the other delegates. Isaiah Kim Martinez is back from Chicago, and Isaiah, the momentum really building, and they've done a good job setting it up for Kamala Harris.
Well, Connie, Doug, that energy when I was in Chicago really was building by the day, leading up, of course, to the big event tonight. And when I was in Chicago, I talked to several Kentucky Democrats who compared their excitement for Kamala Harris to Barack Obama's 2008 run for the White House. Since President Biden ended his re-election campaign, Harris has shot up in the national polls. Many experts saying this race is essentially a dead heat.
Sometimes when you feel something that just grabs you and just shakes you and just cuts through you, it lasts for a moment. You expect it to go down. Everyone expects it to go down. But you know, I don't think this is going to go down. I think this is going to be sustained. I think it's palpable. I think it's real. And that's encouraging to me that we could do this. It's like a renewal.
And that's State Senator Gerald Neal of Louisville speaking to me in Chicago there. But experts have also said that after tonight, the scrutiny on Harris, her policies, and her performance in interviews will intensify.
At some point, the vice president's going to have to sit down with somebody like you and do an interview and do several of these. So I'm looking to see how she does. And Republicans are certainly going to try to define her, to take the inflation and some of the policy proposals that she had supported in the past and try to define her that way, that she's a California liberal.
And that's Republican Trey Grayson, a former Kentucky Secretary of State, speaking to me at the State Fair. Now, we're now 75 days away from the November election, a lifetime in politics where Harris will truly be put to the test. Doug, Connie.
Okay, Isaiah, thank you very much. Certainly going to be a big night tonight coming along. Now, on the other side of the political aisle, former President Donald Trump could soon have a new supporter in Robert Kennedy Jr.
Yeah, according to ABC News, sources say the Democrat turned independent presidential candidate is expected to drop out of the race. Now, those sources also say Kennedy plans to endorse Trump in his re-election bid. Here's how the former president responded to the possibility earlier this morning on Fox News.
I've known him for a long time. He's as you know, he's a little different kind of a guy. Very smart guy. He's a very good person. If he endorsed me, I would be honored by it. I would be very honored by it.
Well, sources with insider information say the endorsement would be in exchange for a position with the Trump administration. As of this evening, Kennedy is still in the running.
ABC News live coverage tonight. The final night of the Democratic National Convention in Chicago comes on the air tonight at 10. You'll see it here live on WHAS 11.